All right. So Todd, I'll ask you to introduce yourself, say where you're from. I think we all know that. And then maybe share one yourself.
So Todd Mason, President and CEO of the Maine Credit Union League and Synergent. I have been with the league and Synergent about 3.5 years now. And so my win for this year is not really my win, but I'm going to take it as mine anyways. My daughter graduated from college, University of Michigan, and she moved out here and is one of us working remotely in the house. So I'm very proud of her and her accomplishments, which means Liv is probably the same age as my daughter, and clearly I have aged out of this group long time ago.
No, that is so cool. With that said, I'd like to hear maybe if you could share a little bit of your story, how you got started in the credit union industry, and then from there we'll jump right into the Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would encourage, I know Jake's going to do this about 1,000 times, but I'm going to do it before I say anything else. Ask questions, whatever they are, please make comments, probe whatever you want. I'm an open book. I love the conversation. I love the dialogue. So I like to have a good laugh too. So just with that said, I'll dive into my story a little bit. My story into credit unions, my path into credit unions was certainly not one that was planned, nor was it a straight path into the professional world for me. When I graduated from high school, I was in and out of college, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, what I wanted to do. And I don't know that I ever truly got serious about college until I met my wife and finally got a little more serious with that and determined or thought my path was going to be an English professor. That's what I thought I was going to be. So my undergrad is English lit. But you have to make a living, as it turns out. You have to pay rent. You have to be able to have a car and go to the grocery store and so on. So I was also going to college full time. I was working full time, and I was working at an advertising agency in a job I never thought that I would have, but it was good enough because it helped pay the bills. I was working in a technology department. Started off doing administrative work, but eventually worked my way into doing some programming and other related technology work. I was laid off. I was laid off in my very last semester of college, and so I was putting out job applications, and I was putting out applications to go to grad school. And the Michigan Credit Union League was one of the ones that responded to my applications. And I took a job as, I didn't even know what the Michigan Credit Union League was or what a credit union was. We took a mid-level tech support job there and never looked back, and have loved it ever since. And have spent about 20 years at the Michigan Credit Union League. I jumped out for about 4 years and worked at a technology company within the automotive industry, and then was recruited out to Maine, as I said, about 3.5 years ago. And I just love the credit union system, and very thankful for what it has given to me and to my family, and hopefully have been able to give a little bit back throughout my career.
Might help if I unmute myself.
It might, Jake. It might.
Yeah, the saying of this year, 2020. Oops, I was on mute for sure. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's very cool. It's kind of cool to know how my CEO and president got started. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I was really bad in high school, so yeah.
With that said, we're gonna jump right into the Q&A. And if you have a question you want to ask, feel free to put it in the chat or just speak up and ask it. But I encourage that for sure. There is a little feature on Zoom, I've been told by a little birdie. It's called the raise your hand feature. I'd love to tell you how it works, but I'm not too sure. Maybe if you click on your name somewhere and raise your hand, that might be another option as well. Thank you, Todd, for raising your hand. That's great. If you could maybe share with us how to do that, that'd be perfect.
If you have the participant window up, I believe is what you need to do. You'll see underneath the list of everyone's name, you'll see invite, mute me, and raise your hand.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that said, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Raise your hand. Anna's raised her hand, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with Anna.
Hi, Todd. So, I
Yeah.
guess my question for you was, so I'm originally from Michigan, so that's
Oh,
awesome. From Kalamazoo.
yeah.
Which credit union or which area there did you start at?
So we lived in Farmington Hills. I grew up in the Birmingham Royal Oak area. Our very first house was in Berkeley. Yeah, our home was in Farmington Hills, and loved Michigan. I still have friends and family there, and get back to visit. A little more difficult now, but get back to visit whenever we can. Kalamazoo and that side, the west side of the state is absolutely beautiful. And as you know, the west coast of Michigan is not too dissimilar to our coastal Maine. Very rocky and all that. So a lot of similarities.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it. So when did you move?
I came out here when I was a kid. My parents moved to Maine, so I've been here since 7th, 8th grade or something. So, but I love it. I love Maine. So
yeah, I do too.
Excellent. I'll jump right in and ask the next question. Todd, if you could go back in time and visit your younger self, starting in the credit union industry or otherwise, what key piece of advice would you give yourself?
Loosen up. That's what I would say. Loosen up and embrace who you are. I spent a lot of time probably not being myself as much as I should have, thinking that I need to put on a certain professional persona. And of course, I mean, it's a job. You got to be professional, right? But probably being a little more uptight than I needed to. I don't know if that hurt my career at all, but it certainly, I think I wasn't able to enjoy it's quite as much as I probably would have had I loosened up a little bit. But it's important to let the real you out a little bit, share your sense of humor and your idiosyncrasies. We all have them. We're all different. And I think that's part of what makes life so exciting is all of our differences. So embrace who you are. And I think I wish I had learned that in my younger self.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like we have Allie and Ed raising their hands.
Todd, when you first got into your mid-level tech support job at the Michigan League, at what point did you discover basically I want to do this for a long time? When did you figure out that that's where you wanted to be for the long
haul? Yeah, I thought it was a 5-year and out thing at most. But I think it was the manager who hired me, forever ever thankful that she gave me the opportunity to get into the Michigan Credit Union League. And it was a great place to start. And I'll get at answering your question in a second. But one of the things that I loved about working at the league was very similar to here in Maine with the Maine Credit Union League and Synergent, and even credit unions for that matter, are all the different things that we do. And so, in one moment I was helping someone in compliance, another minute I was helping somebody in governmental affairs, and someone else I was helping somebody in printing and marketing and other areas, like maybe card services. You kind of walk around the building, and there were these little mini businesses all over the place, and that was just such a neat way to grow up and to learn. And those things have stuck with me ever since. But one of the things that I guess hit me was my boss was a little crazy, and we had this room probably not much bigger than my dining room. There were 3 or 4 of us in it, and as she was nearing when she left, she would close the door, put a cassette in, the same cassette every single day, and turn it up and listen to it every day for weeks at a time. And in my head, it was she leaves or I leave. Unfortunately, she decided to leave. But as she was moving into her next path, I was constantly thinking of what would I do if I were a leader? What would I do? And as soon as I got the opportunity to become leader of our internal information systems, I think, and that's what ultimately got me hooked. Was seeing that opportunity, seeing how I could help influence, even though I was kind of mid-level management at that point at best. Seeing that how I could influence, and then start seeing how I could make those little impacts all over the organization as a leader in it.
Excellent. I'll ask the next one as well. Seeing as the YPN is all about career advancement really within the credit union industry for young professionals, maybe except for Kelsey going into the social work world. But why should someone pursue a career in the credit union industry? What's your elevator pitch on credit unions?
Oh, I have, because I spent so much time in the credit union industry and then had the experience of getting out for a little while. Maybe separation makes the heart grow a little bit fonder, or makes you recognize what you miss. It's the heart of credit unions that I think makes it such a great place to work. I mean, there are great professional opportunities to grow and develop, make more money, advance in your career and your title and all of those things. But you can do that in just about any industry. Where it's more difficult is to work in an industry, to work in a movement that actually matters and actually does something meaningful. And I think that's what keeps me in. And I think that's part of why I would encourage anyone. Like me, and I'm sure like many of you, you didn't graduate from high school or go into college or however your path is and say, I want to work at a credit union. That's what I want. Some of us do, but very few of us know what a credit union is, let alone want to make it a career path. But once you're in and once you figure out and you know they exist, it's a pretty awesome place to be. But I think it goes back to our heart and knowing that whatever you do makes a difference every single day.
That's a great answer. Looks like maybe we'll go to, oh no, I'm gonna say Jay Swindles again. I'm so sorry. I'm forgetting the first name.
It's Gina.
Gina, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. I was just wondering if this is offered to every credit union in the state, because before I was here, I worked with UCU, and I had no idea that this young professionals network met, and I just didn't know if it was offered to everyone or just certain credit unions.
No, it's absolutely every credit union. There's no fee to have your credit union employees be a member of the YPN. Yeah, absolutely open to everyone in the credit union industry, age 21 to 40. So if you have some people that are interested in joining, send them our way for sure. We'd love to have them.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy that I finally found out about this. So
we're happy to have you for sure.
Yeah, we're happy to have you be here too. And just as I'm going to take a quick aside that question because it is a good one. And word of mouth matters a lot. So reach out to your friends in the industry and let them know. And one of the things that is unique about Maine and very, very few other states, maybe 3 or 4 at the most, we have 100% affiliation in the league. And as you may or may not know, membership in the league is voluntary. Credit unions don't have to become a member in a league. They choose to. And we are honored by that. And it just speaks to the kind of state Maine is, the kind of credit unions we are. It speaks to our collaboration and our cooperation, the fact that we do that. I mean, there are some states where you get down into the 60 and 70% of credit unions that are affiliated with their league. And those are states where, the credit union spirit of cooperation is not alive. It just isn't. And there was one of my peers in another state was on a call with credit unions, and they were actively debating the tax status of credit unions. And gosh, is that really important anymore? We're kind of like banks, right? So why don't we just become banks? And that was an active discussion in that state. We don't have that here, which is wonderful. We get the credit union philosophy, we get the credit union spirit, and that happens to be, we get to benefit from that because of the league and your cooperation. But that was a great question, but I wanted to be able to call it out because it's you are part of keeping the cooperative spirit alive. As you grow and advance in your career, you're going to have to make choices for yourself, for your credit union, for the staff that eventually report to you, about what you get involved in, what you don't get involved in, and getting involved in things like this, getting involved in councils, getting involved in committees, and the league in general. Those things are really, really important to be able to do and keep. We're the next generation. No, I'm not. You're the next generation, and you got to think about what is going to be your legacy. as you think about where you go in your career and where you take your credit unions. And I sure hope it's one of cooperation and collaboration. It's going to be different as you progress through your careers than it has been for mine, but it's still got to be pretty darn important.
I couldn't agree more, Todd, and I'm really glad this is a Q&A with Todd, not a Q&A with Jake, because I could not have answered that as well. So thank you for that. It looks like Anna just beat out Elena on the hand raise. So if you want to go ahead, Anna?
Yeah, hi. So one question I kind of thought of for Todd was, did you have someone who was kind of a mentor to you when you were growing in your career, either as a friend or maybe a boss that you had or a manager that was really someone you looked up to?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. The CEOs that I worked under two at the Michigan Credit Union League, and then even at Route One was a technology company. But the one that was, I think I spent the most time with, and I probably had the greatest influence, mostly good, but sometimes not so good, is Dave Adams. He's still the president and CEO of the Michigan Credit Union League. And yeah, a couple of things from him that I got, and this is, any strength taken to an extreme is also a weakness. He was never happy, unless his pants were on fire. He was always shooting for something better, something different, something more, and that was a incredible learning environment for me. Constantly motivating, constantly trying new things, experimenting, and having the opportunity to do that. And the other thing that he did for me is he gave me the opportunity to try new stuff. I mean, I was a technology guy. That's how I grew up. And one of the very first responsibilities that I had outside of technology was running the education department at the Michigan Credit Union League. So I have the education folks looking at me like, what the heck do you know about it? Well, figure it out and get it done. And we did some pretty cool things. I mean, that was back in the mid to late 90s. So this Zoom and WebEx and all that stuff, that wasn't there then. But we were figuring it out. We were figuring out how to deliver technology remotely even back then. And just taking chance after chance after chance like that. And helped me learn, helped me develop it. Dave had a pretty meaningful impact on me. The other one was Mike Jarecki, and I just recently shot him a note. Mike Jarecki was the CEO at Route One, which is the technology company in the automotive industry I worked at. And he wasn't a great strategic thinker. He was absolutely a bull in a china shop with the way he approached things, but he was so operationally focused. He knew how to run an excellent operation, and learned a ton from him. On that side, I had the technology side down, the strategy side down, and operations too. But he really nailed that home with me.
Excellent. Elena or Ethan, do you have a question?
Yeah, sure, I do. I was just wondering, Todd, if you might be able to talk a little bit about the demographics that are in the credit union movement right now and any opportunities as a result of those demographics within credit unions themselves, and how that might present opportunities to young professionals that want to move up, and how they should, what they should do to be able to capitalize on those opportunities.
That is a great question, and yeah, I would, if you have any additional color you want to add to it, please feel free. So there is a lot of opportunity for growth, I think, within the credit union movement. You take a look around, whether it's here in Maine or even on a national basis. There is an ongoing wave of retirements at the CEO level. I think in particular in Maine over the next few years. And while we will miss those CEOs as they retire, they'll create opportunities. Someone will fill their role, and then that next person's role is going to be filled in all the way through. And so there's some really good opportunities there, just because of retirements. And then you start going further into the management structure of credit union. It's in a very similar thing. Because many of most credit unions are relatively small, especially relatively small to banks, your ability to move up the chain can happen much more rapidly. I think at a credit union than in a typical organization or a bank, which is a good thing. It gets you exposure to a much wider variety of things than you would otherwise. My daughter, for example, works at TD Bank. And a great opportunity. She is learning a ton. I think they're the 9th largest bank in the United States. They're also internationally based out of Toronto in Canada. But what she's learning is very, very specialized. At a credit union in a smaller organization, you get to wear a lot of different hats, and it's frustrating at times. What that means is you get to wear a lot of hats and learn a lot of different things, which helps you grow and develop in your career. So I think retirement is a piece of it. I think the size of credit unions and your ability to try different stuff is part of it. And then I see a lot of ladies on the call, and I think that's another part of our demographic. Talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are an industry which is, I think, a great thing that is, I think, has a higher number of credit union leaders that are female than in other industries, and I think that's great. So as a, whether you're a man or a woman, but speaking to the ladies right now, that's some great opportunities to show your leadership and to grow within the industry. You see that in other industries, but I think especially so in here in the industry. I think even in Maine, it's something I can't remember what the exact number is. It's plus or minus 50% of our CEOs are female. And so kind of give you a sense of the opportunity as a young lady what you have. Elena, is there anything else you wanted to throw in?
No, I think, I've seen a lot of changes. Tomorrow will 13th anniversary here at Todd and Federal and in the credit union movement. So when I started, I did start in this position when I was 27. You can do the math. And when my first meeting with, I don't know how familiar you are with the New England Financial Executive Council, but it's a lot of CFOs and management that get together. And my first meeting, I was the youngest person and I was one of the only females there. And now when I go to those meetings, there are a lot of young people and there are a lot of women there. So I think even in 13 years, and I know 13 years sounds like forever, but it's really not when you're talking about those kinds of changes and how much change I've seen just in that, what I consider to be, as you get older, those times seem shorter and shorter, but the change is I think pretty profound in just those 13 years and the mix of people that I'm seeing at some of these management meetings. And they're people that have moved up quickly. And there's so much opportunity in the credit union movement for people to do that. So I think it's a special treat that we have here in the credit union movement. So that was one of the reasons I asked that question.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Maine, we're on our second, maybe third generation of CEOs in terms of many of our credit unions, how many CEOs that they have had. Because many times, CEO stays until they are retired, which is ultimately a good thing. So you're looking at a third, fourth, maybe fifth generation as you're looking at. But yeah, the industry continues to change and evolve, and it's a good thing. But it is, to Elena's point, it's starting to get younger, which is good.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Elena. And I think we have a hand raised, Danielle.
So Todd, I have a kind of a funny question for you, but I'm interested to hear when you're not hard at work and when you're not busy with your personal life, when you have time just for yourself, what kind of things do you dream about?
Wow. What kind of things do I dream about? I didn't think that's where that question was going. Wow. I think a lot about, I don't know if it's dreaming, but I do think a lot about, I'm not planning on retiring tomorrow. So Jake and Sarah and Liv, don't worry. Well, maybe that's a good thing. But I do think a lot about what does my second career look like? What am I going to do after that? Whether that's 5 years, 10 years, whatever that is for me. What is my second career going to be like? And so I think a lot about what that's going to look like, and it probably will look like something. Part of what I love about my job is the social responsibility types of things that I get to do, and so that's one of the things I love most about it. And so dreaming about how I can make that a career after what I do and make that full time. That's what I dream about.
Thank you for that question. Sort of to piggyback off of Danielle's question, more getting to know Todd. It's a fun one. Todd, what's your favorite movie and why?
Wow, it's an old one. It's a really old one, and there's a lot of favorite movies, but this is a super old one. I think it's back maybe since before I was born, probably 40s or 50s. Maine. It's an old movie, and it's about this eccentric aunt who effectively adopts her nephew. Her nephew's parents have died, and she's wealthy. She lives in New York, and she has to raise this young boy into adulthood. And it's just a funny movie. It's a great movie, and just kind of seeing how this young boy and this eccentric lady interact and the different things that they do. But one of the things that has stuck with me from that movie is Auntie Mame says, "Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death." That is kind of why it's my favorite movie. That's what it's about. It just is. She creates all of these opportunities for this young boy, young man, as he grows up. And so he gets to eat at the banquet in so many ways, and she teaches him how to do that throughout his life. So good, funny movie, entertaining movie, but a good underlying message.
All right. The president says it's good. I'll have to add it to the top of the queue for sure.
I'm a nerd, so come on. You may not like it.
Allie and Ed, do you have a question?
Yeah, my question was, what's your advice for a young professional who's ready to move up in their career within credit unions, but they don't necessarily have a position within their credit union that they can move up into?
So I think I'll get at that question in a roundabout way. And I know, all of us, and myself included, you want to move up, you want to try new things, you want to get a better title, you want to get more money, and that's natural. Everybody should try to do that. You want to progress, absolutely. But I think one of the most important things to progressing, and maybe you have this, Allie, is to make sure you've got strength, make sure you've got a really strong base. For me, it just happened to be technology, and I leveraged the heck out of that throughout my career. I couldn't do what I do now, running Synergent, a technology company, if I hadn't crawled under desks, many, many years ago, plugging in Ethernet cables. One thing builds on to the next. So as you're thinking about it, make sure you're developing your strength and something that you can center back on and rely on whenever you need to. And I think the other part is absolutely commit to learning. And it's easier said than done. But you've got to take personal accountability for that. In developing yourself and learning, yes, your credit union should be helping you do that. And hopefully part of YPN is a piece of that, and going to league functions and all the other things. That's it's part of your credit union investing. You should do that. But you got to invest in yourself. You've got to make the time to learn and to try new things and take chances. The third thing would be doing your job gets you not fired. You got to do your job. You got to do it. You got to do it well. But that's kind of table stakes. To get yourself to the next level, it's doing something beyond that. It's doing the job that you think you want. And I've heard this said before. Do your own job, but also do the job that you want to get to. And eventually, that opportunity will open up for you. And the last piece of it, and this is served me well throughout, is try to have a figure it out attitude. I talked a little bit earlier about one of my first career challenges, I call it, have been given something I had never run before, education. I didn't know all that much about education, but I could have been scared as hell. I could say, no, I don't want that. I don't know anything about it. But I said, I'm going to figure it out. And I sat down with that department, and we figured it out, and we kicked butt. It was great. But you got to take some chances, and you got to have that attitude. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but but a lot of it is developing yourself and getting yourself, even if the opportunity isn't quite there yet for you, it's developing yourself as if it were.
I agree. And I'd also like to add to that, if there's ever an opportunity for you to be represented on a league committee, a council, an advisory group, whatever it is, I just encourage you to jump at that opportunity. A lot of times it's a great place to learn the skills, the knowledge, the networking you need really to just advance your career within the credit union industry. So again, if you can just be represented at all, I would definitely jump at that for sure. Any other hands? If not, I'll go ahead and ask one of my my next questions for sure. And this is one that I'm pretty interested in, Todd, myself. Are there any publications, books, courses, whatever it may be that you would recommend to a young professional as they try to advance their career?
I'm going to steal your screen for a second. Steal the screen just for a second.
Oh,
Can you see that?
oh wow, you were prepared.
I was prepared. Let me pop that back up so you can see it. So that's part of our library at the house. And you can see on the right-hand side those are mostly our business books. And so I read a lot. I read a lot of just everything. One of my favorite current books is the one you see right there, 9 Lies About Work. It's an awesome book, and really challenges a lot of the things in terms of how people think about work, how they think about their jobs, and so on. And one of the things it talks about is, very often you'll get career advice, and there is value in this, about trying to be a jack of all trades. And part of what the book says is, yes, that's good, you need to do that. The people that advance and move forward are those that are specialized and are really good at, a couple of things. But I read all the time. And this is just one example. There's a ton of other things, a ton of other books. If you ever want advice for either marketing books, technology books, leadership books, whatever it is, chances are I have a couple of ideas on what those might be. But in terms of periodicals, magazines, one that I go back to again and again and again is Harvard Business Review. It's not a cheap subscription. It's probably about $100 a year, but it is one that I have tried to keep up probably for the past 15, 20 years. And whenever I need to figure something out, I will often start there. And chances are there is an article by someone that's way, way smarter than I am that helps give me a good start. Very often there's templates and examples and all kinds of great things. But I guess if you get nothing else, Harvard Business Review is one of the ones I think, and it's just a go-to resource for me all the time.
Excellent. Looks like Liv has a question.
Hi, Todd. I have a question for you. So I love reading too. I try to switch off, like every time I read a fiction book, then I try to go to nonfiction, back and forth, whatever. I know you're really, really busy, but do you think maybe like sometime this week or next week, you could send to the YPNs a recommendation of books that you have about business and work? Because I'm always looking for stuff, and like, I'd love to hear what you're reading, but if you don't have time, that's fine.
I will have time. You may need to give me a nudge, but I will do that for you.
Thank you.
I will nudge him for sure. Don't worry. Excellent. Any other hands here? I don't want to hog the questions. Absolutely. All right. Looks like Ali and Ed have another question.
Hey, Todd, I know you're a Maine.
I had way too many questions, man. Way too many questions.
No, I'm just like trying not to steal a show here. But I know you just moved to Maine, kind of. But what's your favorite part? Like, what's your absolute favorite part of Maine? And then what's something that's not exactly ideal? There's not really anything bad, so you can't really say that. But what's like not as ideal?
Wow. I like spending time in the mountains. I like spending time on the coast, absolutely. But I love going hiking. I love spending time up in the mountains. Not nearly enough this summer, but it's one of the things that I absolutely love. And living here in Portland, one of the things that's pretty awesome is the food. It's a little bit harder this summer, but we're foodies. And so all the great restaurants and things that are here are super. So this is good and bad, right? So I think one of the things in a more populated area is just I don't know, you can go back to Michigan and it's like immediate white knuckles because there's just so much traffic. The pace is so much faster, not faster necessarily, but there's just so much more going on. You know, and there's 15 malls in a 5-mile radius, or stores, or just, you know, all kinds of things. So I don't know if I missed that or not, but that's something that's, it's definitely, it's definitely, different here just because the population isn't quite as large. And population here in Maine, as you know, is about 1.3 million. Where I lived, population was 10 times larger. It's about 10.3 million. And so just different scale, neither good nor bad, it's just different.
Excellent. Okay, this is a fun one. So has there been a defining moment or something you're most proud of since becoming the president and CEO of Synergent in the Maine Credit Union League?
Wow. Many of you talked about COVID. I'll talk about COVID for a second. And I think the defining moment has been this year in terms of what we as a league and Synergent, what you credit unions, what we have done during COVID. I mean, it's like someone has opened up our disaster recovery plans and said, we're going to test this today, we're going to test this tomorrow, we're going to test this the next day. It's just been absolutely insane. And yet we figured it out and we're okay and we stuck together. And so I think, if anything, that was a defining moment, and it's one, that you could easily run away from or hide from. But we all stood strong and we all did what we needed to do. And so I think, this has been an important year for me as a leader, and trying to help drive consistency and consensus and common approaches amongst our 54 credit unions, and helping all of us navigate through. And so I think this has been an important year. And one of the things coming out of this is, we've done things, you've done things that if I asked you at the beginning of this year, could you do it? You would have said, no way, that's impossible. And you did it. And so now what I'm excited about as we get into the remainder of this year and going to 2021 and beyond, it's now that we've figured out our superpowers, what are we going to do with them? And it's pretty amazing. But this year has been, in many, many challenging ways, but a defining moment, I think, for myself and probably for all of you in various ways.
Yeah, for sure. Emily, it looks like you have a question.
I'm gonna just one quick moment.
Oh yeah, please.
And this is the communications and marketing team. I want to give them some kudos in terms of what they have done and helping credit unions and just getting out the message. The beginning of COVID, when March started off with the town halls. We built on the league website. We built the COVID-19 resource center. All the information, the materials that we created, the social media posts, campaigns that we posted to help create consistency with COVID messaging, lobby resources, guidance, all of those things. The marketing department was a huge force behind getting all that work done. And then, of course, all the input that we got from all the credit unions, and that just helped us make us better, smarter, and stronger. So, but anyway, there was another question coming in.
Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, so I have one and Bailey has one. And they kind of go together. So what is your biggest obstacle you've had to overcome, and who is your biggest inspiration?
Wow. The biggest obstacle. This may seem like a cop out, but it's definitely an obstacle, and perhaps the biggest one. And sometimes it's just myself. I talked about that a little bit earlier in terms of what advice would I give myself in my my younger days. That's just getting over myself. Very often, I am my own biggest obstacle in terms of making sure that I am focused in on the things that I need to focus in on, doing the things that I need to do, and I'm putting the right pace forward when I need to. And as a leader, you're faced with challenges all the time, and all of us. I know certainly I am. I don't love confrontation. I'm sure most of you don't love confrontation yourselves, and yet as a leader, you need to do that, and it's hard to do that at times. And so, in terms of biggest obstacles, it's fight or flight, right? So when you're faced with a challenge, you got a choice. You can either fight it or you can flight. And the natural reaction for many of us is to fly away from it. And so talking about challenges, it's that. It's figuring out how to fight in the most positive way, how to fight. The biggest inspiration, my mom and my grandma. I'm gonna cheat. My mom and my grandma. Certainly my mom is a single mom. Raising my brother and I. The incredible things that she had to do to keep us all going. I grew up poor. And she kept us together. We kept food on the table, and there's a lot of, I'm not going to get it all into it today, but the strength that she had, and I learned from throughout my childhood, and just seeing how she got out of the circumstances she did, out of circumstances we were in, see how she grew. And then my grandma, she was there. She helped raise me for a number of years, and she was just my rock. Just my absolute rock, and in so many ways, and just a great inspiration for me. And I still think back to some of the stories and things that she told me as a kid.
I got a kind of a two for
That
one.
is awesome. Thank you so much for answering our question.
You bet.
Thank you, Emily. I have a bit of a 2-for-1 question for you, Todd. So what do you enjoy most in your role as president and CEO? And would you recommend that's a role someone jump into if maybe they're flirting with the idea of going down that path someday?
Yeah, I love this kind of stuff. This is a lot of fun. Interactions like this, and they happen in so many different ways. But it's the interactions that I enjoy the most, whether it's with the YPN group, getting in front of our legislators, other influencers in the state, our credit union CEOs, and being able to collaborate and learn from each other. I love learning, and these are moments for me to be able to hopefully give a little bit to you, but I learn from you too. So I love that. Other things that I love about my job, I am kind of wired to think strategically. I don't know, just weird. And so, part of what I love about my job is to be able to think about the future, think about where we're going, and to develop the path to help us get there. And being able to have a super team around me to be able to help get us there. And it's not always, how we get there is not always important to me, but the fact that we get there. And I'm a big believer, and it's not my idea, it's not your idea, it's the best idea. And being able to drive those conversations is important. So what I encourage someone to get into this role, you got to know yourself. This was becoming a CEO was not on my bucket list. I thought being a CEO would be great if I could do it, but it wasn't on my list. I was pretty happy being in the number 2 role. There is huge benefit to being number 2. Let me tell you, there's a huge benefit. You're shielded from things that you just would never know. But it's also good to be king. You get to do a lot of different things. You get to be involved in a lot of different things. But you got to have a pretty strong stomach at times to be able to work with through. It's a lonely, it's an incredibly, and it's a job that just keeps giving back and back and back. But it's also challenging. You got to have a stomach for it.
And I do want to say one quick thing. Danielle, we're absolutely going to get to your question for sure, but I just want to let people know that we have reached the 5 o'clock hour. I know many of you, looks like you're at the office. So if you're heading home soon or you're clocking out, I won't be offended if you hop off, if you're not joining the networking hour to follow. But with that said, I think we still have a couple more questions. So I'm just going to keep hitting them as long as
you guys if you're good, I'm good.
Okay, absolutely. Danielle, I'd love to hear your question.
So my question is, it's sort of been my own personal running joke that I've lived under a rock my whole life, and I just sort of like it that way. I'm starting to realize that in my leadership role, I need to be a lot more aware of what's going on around me, but it's all very new to me. So do you have any, I know you mentioned a couple of resources already, but is there like a daily routine or something that you constantly look at to make sure that you're aware of what's going on in the industry, or try to just make yourself more aware of what's going on?
I actually wish I were better at that than I am, and I'm not bad at it, but I wish I were better at it. But I manage by lists. I'm a list guy, and so usually I often do it on a Sunday, but sometimes it's on a Friday, sometimes it's on a Monday. I know it's all in my Outlook calendar. It's on my iPad. It's on my iPhone. I can get it wherever I want electronically. But I actually take my calendar and I put it in a Word document. And I put my to-do list. I have my calendar on my meetings this week and the next week, and then all the things that I need to do in the other column. And I manage that. And if I have new stuff, I just add it to it. And so that helps me keep myself on track in terms of the things that I need to accomplish. And it feels good to be able to check something off. But part of the way I try to keep myself going in terms of up to date on what's going on is I read a little bit every day in terms of what's happening in the industry. I think that is important. I have the benefit of being able, because I'm part of them, being able to go to league events. So that's another way I keep myself up to date. But as I said, I'm a nerd. So there are times of the year, it's generally in the fall, but they happen throughout the times. I just inhale white papers. So when I'm starting to think about something new, I'm starting to think about going into our planning season, or we're trying to attack a new problem, I will inhale white papers. So I'll go to McKinsey, I'll go to Deloitte, I'll go to Accenture. There's a ton of really, really good free resources that are out there, and I'll just inhale them on whatever topics, whether it's payments, it's security, technology. There was, for example, I think it was, was it Deloitte or Accenture? They had just an incredible series on leading through COVID, and just really heady stuff. But it was just great because it just helped me give some good ideas in terms of how I wanted to lead my organization, and then guidance and advice that I could provide to credit unions all over the place. But I try to do a little bit I guess the quick answer is I try to do a little bit every day, and then I binge every few months.
Excellent. And I know you just talked about sort of juggling your work life and your workload, but I guess a follow-up question to that would be, how do you maintain a work and life balance in such a critical role?
I think this is, I'll answer the question, but I'm going to start off by saying know yourself, and know what point in your life you're in, and what is important to you, and what's important to you. I made some decisions that I was going throughout my career, maybe not to advance quite as quickly or do quite as much as I might have otherwise, because family was really important to me. I really wanted to make sure that I had time to coach my kids in cross country, to be able to go to their plays, to be able to help them out with homework and spend time with them. That was really important to me. And so when I became CEO, it was a really good time in my life for me because my kids are grown. My son is 25, my daughter is He's 24, my daughter is 22. So it was a good time in life for life. I had more personal time that I could give up to work. And so the work-life balance is still important, but it's a different equation for me where I am right now in my career. I think you need to know that, you know, wherever you are in your career, wherever you are in your life stage, it's making sure you're making the right career choices to give you the right work-life balance that you need. And so I made decisions as I was going through. But to answer the question, I do this for myself and I try to do this for my staff. I'm not always successful in it, but I try really hard not to respond or send emails after a certain hour. They tend to spawn on each other. Again, I don't always do this. I'm not always great at it, but it's part of, you know, at a certain time, I try not to look at my phone as much as I would otherwise. You know, I try on the weekends to make sure, I will spend time working. It's part as a CEO, just part of what I guess I need to do at a point in time, but I try to segment that out and compartmentalize that instead of scattering it throughout an entire day. I'll spend Sunday afternoon and I'll bang out a few hours in that. But go back to the to-do list. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So, you know, a lot of it is just making sure I'm managing my calendar. I don't know if I gave a good answer to completely good answer to that. It is hard. I mean, it's just really, really hard in the role to get that balance. But again, it's a little bit, I call it easier for me because where I am. But I do. I love my family. I want to spend as much time as I can. We still eat dinner together every single night. And we spend as much time as we can. Even my growing kids here in the house, we eat dinner together. So we make those moments and make sure we make time for those moments.
Excellent. And I promise just a couple more questions. I just think this is so insightful for everyone. And
I'm not that smart.
I promise we'll get to the networking part soon for any of those that do want to stay. Maybe have a cold one. I'll make sure I stop recording the session when that happens. But just a couple more questions if I could. So what just motivates you to do the best job that you can every day?
Influence. It's the ability to influence and feel that I've made a change. You know, whether it's a change in one of my employees' lives, it's, you know, something larger outside the organization or whatever else. It's the ability to influence.
Excellent. And maybe we'll end it with this. Where in Maine have you not yet visited but would really like to?
I have not been to Mount Todd yet, and I need to get there. That's one of the, I just have not tried to make, I just haven't made the time yet. I've talked about doing it for years, probably since I've gotten here, and I still haven't made it. So that's the one.
What do you think, Todd? Would you do Knife's Edge?
I would love to do Knife's Edge. So yeah, I'm gonna do it. I think that's the one, or at least the second time. Maybe just getting up an easier way the first time, but I'd like to do it. Mm-hmm.
I imagine Elena and Ethan are the experts here. Have either of you hiked Katahdin before?
Yeah, we were just talking about it. We both have. Yeah, Ethan said he hasn't been across Knife's Edge. I've been across it twice. And it is, I mean, it's pretty intense. And I don't think you even realize how intense when you're up there, but there's a company that charters flights right from Millinocket, the Ambajijas Lake, and my husband and I flew in one of those planes to dinner, and you fly right over Knife's Edge. And when you're looking at it from up in the air down onto it, you realize just how intense it is. So if you don't want to go across it on foot, Todd, you could always fly over it instead.
That's a total cheat, and a good cheat.
But I have gone across on foot too, so I feel like I'm qualified to make that statement.
You can make it. You're allowed. And if you have any recommendations for what I should see, please do. I've taken a lot of those recommendations and tried out a lot of them. I've been to Acadia a number of times, and I just love it there.